Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 Spoilers channel. Billy was left behind when Sally left. This is your recap for Tuesday, September 16th, 2025's episode of The Young and the Restless. The Young and the Restless events. On The Young and the Restless, Holden made an effort to be cordial with Claire and Kyle. Adam was appreciated by Chelsea for taking them out of the office for lunch at Society. They had a brief conversation about business. Adam advised them to monitor the cancellation of the Abbott Communications launch party. Adam pointed out that Jack had stated no comment regarding the gala's cancellation. Adam went on to say that a startup had a million moving parts. When one thing goes wrong, everything goes haywire. Victor must be devastated to learn that Newman Media's rival is having issues, Chelsea joked. Adam stated that as long as Billy was participating, he was not concerned about Abbott Communications playing a role. I won't be bringing any work to dinner, Adam added. They shared a kiss. Chelsea mentioned Billy once more. She emphasized that Sally was in charge of Abbott Communications, not that person. Adam emphasized that it was a fact, not an opinion, that Billy was acting rashly to achieve his goals. Sally wouldn't do anything dirty to move on from Newman, he added. Sally did just that to Summer, and Chelsea pleaded to disagree. Adam brought up the fact that he and Chelsea had both engaged in unethical behavior in the past, observed that, for the most part, they are both doing well presently. Adam claimed that if Billy paid attention to Sally, she would have a positive influence on him. Adam had a suspicion that Billy would make Sally the CEO in name only, leaving him as the real boss. Sally received a vote of confidence from Chelsea. She believed that Sally would not allow Billy to manipulate her. Kyle asked Claire if they could start over at Crimson Lights. According to Claire, she still finds it hard to believe Kyle lied to her with such ease. I'm trying to fix what they have, Kyle remarked. Kyle expressed his desire that Claire would love him. He revealed that he had thought of the ideal answer. Kyle proposed going to Paris. They might depart immediately or in the morning, he said. They could get what they needed in France, so they didn't even need to pack. Since Claire was going to be working at Newman Publishing, Kyle recommended that they visit some bookstores. Kyle stated that he wanted to please Cole and that the trip might honor her. Kyle questioned, "Are we on?" Claire admitted to being tempted. "All you have to do is say yes," Kyle went on. Claire gently brought up the possibility that they might be avoiding their issues rather than addressing them. Kyle advised that instead of viewing this trip as a runaway, they should view it as a run towards a deeper connection and a more significant partnership. Approaching the couple, Esther expressed her desire to visit Paris. Esther congratulated Claire on her good fortune. She went on to say that she was overjoyed to see the young couple visit Paris. "It'll be magic," Esther informed them. Claire said that she had to start her new work at Newman Publishing, so she couldn't go. She also couldn't abandon her mother. According to Kyle, she spoke with Victoria, who expressed her support for them. Claire claimed to have brought that up. When there was an issue, Claire asked Kyle whether this was what he did. He said, "Try to fix it." Claire reiterated that Kyle had betrayed her trust, and she is unsure if he was able to get over it by offering her a trip to Paris. Kyle reassured Claire that his proposed vacation to Paris would not be a distraction. He invited Claire to join him, declaring his love for her. Kyle claimed that hurting Claire was heartbreaking. He was curious about the necessary steps to rectify this situation. Kyle told Claire that he wanted her to express her needs and desires to him. Holden entered at the very moment. In celebration of Kyle and Claire's trip to Paris, Esther gave them 2 complimentary café au lait beverages. According to Claire, she hadn't approved of that. Holden expressed regret to Claire and Kyle for going too far. He didn't want their issues with Audra to get worse. According to Claire, they haven't had any issues with Audra lately. Holden claimed his conversation with her must have been successful. After expressing suspicion, Kyle acknowledged that he might have overreacted. Holden claimed to comprehend. If he were in the company of a remarkable woman like Claire, he would act in the same manner. Holden went on to say that he was working for Kane and was heading to Los Angeles to close out Kane's Southern California real estate holdings. Kyle questioned why Holden had returned to work for the man who killed his best buddy, Damien. Holden claimed to have understood that Kane was not to blame for Damien's passing. He expressed his happiness at having a job. Kyle remarked, "I bet you are." He was happy that he was staying, Claire added. Holden asked Kyle how they were doing while Claire went to answer a call from Vicky. Kyle stated, "Not even close," and that they never will be. Holden only grinned at Kyle's claim. After taking a shower, Billy felt rejuvenated, but he wondered whether his intentions to defeat Victor had scared Sally away. Billy's desire to defeat Victor using Kane's AI software was summarized by Sally. "I'll just threaten to use it," Billy said. There was too much risk, Sally argued. Billy promised that they would have all of their dreams fulfilled. This was everything he had hoped for, Sally explained. She thought she was being taken advantage of. Billy revised the plan because he wanted to exact revenge on Victor, even though Sally claimed she was thrilled about the prospect of leading Abbott Communications. Everything might explode out in Billy's face, Sally warned. Why would he try at all? Billy claimed that this was his best chance to achieve his goals. Sally was requested to support him. Billy's desire to use extortion to finance Abbott Communications after Jack had pulled out infuriated Sally. Sally pleaded with Billy to stay with him. Although life was wonderful, Billy thought it could be greater. Billy was the target of Sally's departure. They could have it everything, he assured her. She claimed that hatred, obsession, and retaliation were at the heart of Billy's larger image. She had no desire to be included in the photo. Sally picked up her handbag and walked out. Sally continued to go even after Billy called after her. Adam and Chelsea revisited Sally's breakup with Billy at Adam's workplace. Chelsea finally became irritated with Adam's extolling of Sally's achievements. When Sally left Marchetti to work at Abbott Communications, Adam was incensed that Billy had cost her 2 jobs. Since they don't have all the information, Chelsea advised Adam not to hold Billy responsible for anything. Billy called Katie in the interim to find out if Johnny was present. He explained that the news he wanted to deliver with them, that Sally would be moving in with him, would have to wait, and requested them to join him on speakerphone. Adam will never think the best of Billy, Chelsea observed. Adam retorted that although Billy doesn't have any, Chelsea would always see the best in him. Sally, meantime, encountered Adam and Chelsea when she entered society. She told them that Abbott Communications no longer employed her. Sally was questioned by Adam and Chelsea on her departure. Adam referred to Billy as a son of a bitch and an ass. Adam questioned Billy's decision to fire the greatest CEO he had ever had. Chelsea inquired as to whether they could do anything. Billy, meantime, picked up the fake Genoa City Chronicle he had created for Sally, which declared Abbott Communications' triumph with a hint of longing. Sally then assured Chelsea and Adam that she was all right. Her phone rang. She moved aside. Adam informed Chelsea that Billy was the one phoning Sally after snooping on her screen. Sally had a drink in the society bar. She remembered reading the article that glowingly described their intimate relationship in Billy's fake newspaper. Sally finally answered the phone and answered Billy's persistent calls. She was unable to respond to his question about whether she was leaving all of his life or just the business side of it. Billy's phone then rang. Kane was the one. Billy put his phone aside and considered his next course of action. Sally's decision to walk out on Billy wasn't just a fleeting moment of anger or frustration. It was the culmination of weeks, months, even years of accumulated baggage, ambition, and the gnawing realization that she was once again at risk of losing herself in the orbit of a man whose vision of the world was painted in shades of obsession, revenge, and unchecked ego. And though Billy had just stepped out of the shower that evening, refreshed and determined, ready to frame his latest scheme as bold brilliance rather than reckless desperation, Sally's eyes told a different story. one of exhaustion, heartbreak, and an almost reluctant clarity as she replayed his pitch in her mind. His insistence that Kane's AI software could become the weapon they needed to finally topple Victor Newman, the man who had haunted Billy's life for decades, turning every business venture into a battlefield and every personal choice into collateral damage. And while Billy tried to frame it as merely a threat, rather than an outright deployment of the technology, Sally knew better. She could feel the undertone in his voice, that all too familiar Abbott recklessness that had once charmed her with its daring, but now only terrified her with its potential to implode, dragging them both down into the rubble. And so, as she listened to him talk about everything we've ever dreamed of, she realized with piercing accuracy that what Billy meant was everything he had dreamed of: power, triumph, revenge, validation, while her dreams, though aligned at first with the fantasy of building Abbott Communications into a true powerhouse, had been increasingly sidelined, overwritten by his vendettas and his insistence that his way was the only way forward. And in that moment, she saw herself once again slipping into the pattern that had haunted her in every relationship. Adam, Nick, Jack, and now Billy, where her drive and ingenuity were either dismissed, hijacked, or consumed by the gravitational pull of men who thought they knew better, men who mistook her loyalty for submission, her fire for decoration, her ambition for something to be managed rather than celebrated. And as Billy's voice rose with desperation, pleading for her to stand by him, promising that life could be better if she just trusted him, she felt a bitter irony twist inside of her, because wasn't this exactly the same sales pitch every man in her life had given her? That together they could have it all, that she simply had to overlook the red flags, silence the doubts, and trust blindly in their vision. But Sally Spectra had learned too many times that blind trust led to blind falls, and she wasn't willing to go tumbling into another abyss. Not this time. Not when she had finally built something resembling stability in Genoa City. Not when her role at Abbott Communications was supposed to be about proving herself. Not about fueling Billy Abbott's war with Victor Newman. So with a heaviness that still managed to carry dignity, she picked up her purse, her voice cutting through his entreaties with finality as she told him she wanted no part of his big picture, because his big picture wasn't about innovation, creation, or success. It was about hatred, obsession, and revenge. And that wasn't a picture she was willing to hang on the wall of her life anymore. And though Billy called after her, his voice a mix of disbelief and rising panic, Sally kept walking, each step echoing like a gavel of final judgment. And when she emerged into the night air, her chest ached with the paradox of liberation and loss, because though she knew she had made the right choice, it didn't make the act of leaving any less painful. And by the time she walked into society, running directly into Adam and Chelsea, the irony was almost too sharp to bear, because there she stood, freshly wounded by one Abbott, only to be scrutinized by another Newman and his on-again, off-again partner, both eager to dissect her downfall and reframe her decisions as if she were merely another piece on their chessboard. Adam praising her talents and decrying Billy's idiocy, Chelsea urging restraint, both of them treating her like a trophy lost or won, yet neither understanding the depth of the war she was fighting within herself, the war between her desire to be taken seriously as a leader, as a visionary, as a woman who had clawed her way up from rejection, humiliation, and near destruction, and her lingering vulnerability, the ache of wanting to be loved and supported without having to sacrifice her autonomy. And though she insisted she was fine, brushing off Adam's fury and Chelsea's sympathy, the truth was that inside she was anything but fine, because walking out of that hotel room with Billy behind her hadn't just been walking out of a business plan gone sour. It had been walking out on the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different than this. Time she had found a partner who saw her as an equal instead of a pawn. And yet, as her phone buzzed with Billy's name flashing on the screen and Adam's hawk-like eyes caught the caller ID, Sally knew the story wasn't finished, not by a long shot, because Billy Abbott was not the kind of man to let go easily, not of a fight, not of a dream, and certainly not of a woman who had once chosen to stand beside him. And though she silenced the call at first, retreating into a drink at the bar and letting her thoughts drift to that faux Genoa City chronicle Billy had mocked up to celebrate their imagined success, She couldn't ignore the symbolism. Billy lived in a fantasy of headlines, while she lived in the brutal reality of consequences, and those two worlds were never going to coexist peacefully, no matter how much they loved or how much they wanted to believe they could bend reality into submission. And so, as she finally picked up his call, torn between the business they had tried to build and the tangled feelings that lingered between them, she found herself at a crossroads that would define not just her career, but her very identity in Genoa City, because the question wasn't simply whether she was walking away from Billy's plan or from Billy himself, but whether she was finally walking away from the cycle that had defined her entire time in this town, the cycle of compromise, of trying to belong, of clinging to men who promised the world but delivered only fragments. And, with Kane's name flashing next on Billy's phone, the shadow of yet another schemer hovering at the edges of their lives, Sally understood that whatever came next, she had taken the first step toward reclaiming herself, even if it meant burning bridges that still smoldered with longing, even if it meant standing alone in a city that had never quite embraced her, because Sally Spectra had always been a survivor, and survivors knew when to walk away, even if it broke their own hearts in the process.